This video is powered by Dr. Cinik, one of the world's leading hair transplant centres and a top choice among football superstars. Scan the QR code on the screen or click the link below for your free consultation. I'm even thinking about getting it done myself.
Right, I'm here with Sharoy, aka Nostradamus, because we spoke at length before the game and you actually predicted the correct scoreline, 1-0. So was that prescience or luck?
You know what, I was saying 2-0 when I thought that we would have Odegaard available. But then you just get a feeling that you're going to lack a little bit going forward, at the very least, when you lose someone as integral as him, right? I mean, you're talking about someone that, if I'm not mistaken, made the PFA Team of the Year and was also a Ballon d'Or nominee. I mean, that guy, he's our captain. He's our enforcer on the pitch. But one thing about this team is they have shown year after year after year that on occasions like this, in general terms, they will try and find a way, and they're not willing to lose. You know, and the reason that I said 1-0 is because we're now a team that over the years has evolved into a multifaceted team. If we're not going to hit you with the possession-based football, we might find a way on the break. And if we're not going to find a way on the break, we might hit you with a set piece. And I just thought that this whole game was going to be about weathering a storm, particularly when I saw that Tottenham lineup. You grow into the game, you get that opportunity, you take it, and then if there's any team that you would back to hold on to a 1-0 lead, it's this version of Arsenal Football Club.
1-0 to the Arsenal.
Yeah. 1-0 to the Arsenal for sure. And let's not understate the importance of that win. Because one, of course, it's the North London derby, right? So when you take that game out of the scheme of the season, it doesn't matter what we're going for. It doesn't matter what they're going for. It doesn't matter how good we've looked coming into it. It doesn't matter how good they've looked coming into it. This game means everything in this city, you know, and to go and do them in their own backyard 3 years in a row. Wow. 3 years in a row. I know that there are Tottenham fans out there hurting. I've never been so excited about getting the tube home in my life. I'm going to be, and this is the thing. This is what a game like this does. It impacts.
Preach.
It impacts my mood on the way home. It's going to impact my mood when I go to sleep tonight. It's going to impact the spring in my step when I wake up in the morning. It's going to impact the chest that I roll into the office with. That's what this game does, you know. And that's not. Let's be clear. Obviously, I'm happy about the result, and I'm sure we'll get into it. But it's actually somewhat sweeter knowing that, in my opinion, we were nowhere near our best, and they still didn't get a goal against us, and we still come out with the 3 points.
You're right, because I was going to say that it was a win, but let's be honest, it was quite an ugly win, really, wasn't it, in terms of the way Arsenal normally play. It wasn't our best performance, but listen, like you said, we went into the Lions Den, so-called Lions Den, kept a clean sheet, 1-0. Give me your standout players today for Arsenal.
The whole back line and the goalkeeper, in all honesty. I mean, I understand that Ben White had a tough time of it in the first half, but he was up against the only world-class player that they have in their front line. So that's understandable. He was going to have a more difficult time of it. But I thought Timber today, bearing in mind that a lot of people, when he was signed, didn't think that he'd be occupying the left-back position necessarily, right? Because he's played at centre-back, he's played in the midfield, he's played at right-back. A lot of people thought the left-back was the position that he's probably not as good at. That was imperious today. That was a high IQ performance. Whatever they and don't forget that Porro is also a sort of marauding fullback down that side, right? Martinelli chipped in with the defensive work, but I thought Timber was superb. When you're talking about Saliba had to walk a tightrope after what for me was a very, very naive and stupid yellow card to pick up, having seen what we saw last week. All right, but he conducted that balancing exercise to perfection. He didn't lose the aggression, but he just had a bit more nous about him. And Gabriel, it seemed like he was there every single time the ball was in the box. And he then has that determinative moment. And I can see that on Sky Sports they've been talking about whether that was a foul on Romero. It is the slightest nudge. You look at what's going on in the box on every set piece. That for me is not enough to be able to rule out a goal. So let's put that to bed now. I don't want to hear any more. I don't want to hear any more of that. Okay? But one thing I will say is we also can't understate the defensive work that those wingers had to do today. Mm-hmm. Because we do know that Tottenham, when you're looking at Son, when you're looking at Porro, when you're looking at Brennan Johnson, when you're looking at Destiny, they carry a lot of threat through those flanks, right? And it's actually through the middle of the park with the Solankis and the Kulus that they struggled. The defensive work that those wingers put in maybe sort of blunted their attacking work ever so slightly, but that cannot go understated. We defend as a team now. It's not easy to get a goal against us. And that is going to be even more important going forward when we've lost someone like Odegaard. When perhaps we might have been looking at scoring 2s and 3s, there might be a lot of games over the next 4 weeks or so where we might need to be winning with a little one. But we showed today that we can do that. And we took, even though we sort of, stood up to Vicario, grabbed his shirt a bit or whatever, generally we took the sting out of that occasion. And it's just so, so lovely seeing our fans being the ones that are sticking around in their stadium and seeing those Sky Sports shots of them flooding out of the stadium. This means the world in this part of London.
Absolutely, it does. And listen, this game today was such an important game. We spoke about it on the watch-along. The first of three very important games. Today, obviously, against Spurs, Atalanta, City. Now, all three of those games are away games. And today, as you said earlier, we're missing two very important cogs of the wheel, Odegaard and Declan Rice, although Declan Rice will be back for the Atalanta games and the City games, hopefully. So this was a massive game today. So to, get a win today, like I said, clean sheet, a win, absolutely superb. And to me, sets us up nicely for those two games coming up.
Can you imagine the pressure on going to the Etihad if we drop points today? One thing I'll always say is don't ever look past the challenge in front of you. We've seen that far too many times, where you start focusing on what might be coming later in the week or a couple of weeks down the line, and you miss out on what's in front of you. We had to win today. I think we had to win today, and we did win today. When you're looking at Manchester City, Declan Rice comes back into it. At the back end of last season, when we were quite firmly in a title race, it's too early to be in a title race now. Everyone was saying, look, it's one game at a time. It's one game at a time. I don't see why we should disapply that logic even at the start of the season. Even at the start of the season, it has to be one game at a time, so you earn your right to be in a title challenge. So far, so good. We've played 4 games. I think we should have won all 4 ultimately. And a red card proved to be one of the reasons why we dropped points at home. We've remedied that today with a massive, massive win. Now, looking at the Etihad, that is a traditional 6-pointer in many ways. But now, call me defeatist in the comments if you want. I know that Rodri has said we went there last year not to win, but to get a draw or whatever. I'm not suggesting we go there to play for a draw. But now, if we do get a draw at the Etihad, I will be perfectly comfortable with that, when I wouldn't have been had we lost here today or had we drawn here today. Because you're looking at Villa away, Tottenham away, a tough home game at Brighton, and City away. And we've come out of the first 4 pretty much unscathed. If we can come out of that first 5 unbeaten, when you've got these notable absentees, do you want to go through them? Zinchenko, Tomiyasu, Declan Rice, Martin Odegaard, our signing Marino, our signing Calafiori. I mean, if people want to count Tierney, you can maybe count Tierney, right? And I'm pretty sure there's another that I'm missing as well. We're talking about 7 or 8 of the first team squad that weren't there, with a lot of kids on the bench. Everyone looked at our bench today and said it was like, well, we still found a way. Declan Rice coming back next week is massive, particularly because, Laurie, and I think you'll agree with me, that midfield performance today left a lot to be desired, man. When we were in, one of the things that I associate with Arsenal generally is being good in possession, all right? I know our off-the-ball work is generally good, but we're usually good in possession. I don't think Partey, Jorginho or Trossard will be coming off the pitch happy with themselves today. There were so many situations where, and I know it's an obvious thing to say because Odegaard's not there, but the pass before the pass was lacking. We got into some really good areas where we could have found Martinelli perhaps, or we did find Martinelli, but he took 1 too many touches. Trossard takes 1 too many touches. Partey takes 1 too many, or a loose ball. It leads to a turnover, and that is where Tottenham carried threat today. It was because we were almost the makers of our own downfall in many ways, giving them the opportunity to break on us. If you think you don't have much time against Tottenham, you're going to have less time against Manchester City, because Pep Guardiola teams are like a pack of dogs, mate. They're not going to give you time on the ball. So I think Declan Rice coming back is massive. I wanted to come through this one unscathed. We've done better than that, and we picked up 3 points.
So what you're saying, in effect, then, is that with Declan Rice coming back, one of those guys that played today is going to drop out.
Yeah.
Who's this going to drop out for you?
Realistically, for me, I think it's going to be, we're going back to Partey and Rice in the midfield. But having said that, Thomas Partey does need to step up next week, because today, I haven't watched the game back. This is instantaneous, all right? But that, for me, I'd go as far to say as that was a bad performance from Thomas Partey in possession. You know, there were so many times, and the reason I'm holding him to his own standards, by the way, because I've seen what he can do when he's in possession. Yeah. I've seen the relative ease with which he can find wingers. I've seen how press resistant he can be. I've seen how good he can be on the half turn. I've seen how explosive he can be. He didn't illustrate any of those qualities for me for a sustained period of time today, and that actually brought pressure on. Luckily, we had a back four and a goalkeeper that were capable of dealing with it, right? Because David Raya keeps us at 0-0. For Gabriel to have the moment that he has, David Raya has set the platform. so that Gabriel can go up and have that determinative moment, right? And it's a moment that ultimately we can all look back on with fondness, but it's a moment that sets us up nicely for the game after, to the extent that we don't have to talk about Partey's performance in as much depth as we would have had we dropped points. We don't need to talk about Martinelli having not squared it to Saka. You know, we're not going to dwell on those moments now because we've won. We should revel in it. Tottenham's misery is a beautiful, beautiful thing. But we're now going up against, next week, the team, and I'm not looking past Atalanta, I'm just talking about the Premier League. Yeah. We're going up against a team that's won 6 of the last 7, that's won 4 in a row, that's undefeated, and they have a striker that's outscored our entire team this season. All right? Make no mistake.
Absolutely.
This is a task next week.
It is. And just to keep it positive, sum up very briefly, a couple of words, how you're feeling today going into next week.
Look, I'm on top of the world, man. And to be honest with you, this might come back and bite me in the arse, but one thing that you can look at for City's results, one, a lot of teams that are lesser than us have actually scored against them this year. Even Ipswich have a goal against them. They conceded within a minute against Brentford yesterday. But also, those teams aren't particularly good at shutting up shop. We have historically restricted the notorious Erling Haaland to an XG of 0 in certain games. And if our defensive performance today is anything to go by, that high IQ, forgive my language, but that ballsy performance, I'm encouraged. We've got a good platform. And I'm very, very confident going into next week that we're not going to lose. And that's as far as I'll go with that.
There you have it. Well said.